Next speaker, Dr. Shrikant Sahu. Just a minute. Dr. Shrikant Sahu is a very respected friend and an ophthalmologist to many, because he has a very friendly approach. It's knowing him, you realize what kind of a genuine person he is. And he heads the Mithu Tulsi Chandraj campus of Bhubaneswar. He's a consultant cornea and anterior segment, and he is going to show truly a teaching video for us. On to you, Dr. Shrikant.
Can you play the video for me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to speak a surgery on keratoglobus. Can you play it? This was surgery long back. After that, I learned a lot from this particular surgery. I'll come down with all the demerits which I did. I did a scleral incision, 2.2 size, and the limbal incision, side port for limbal incision, just mark. And then put in a viscoelastic and started with this case of keratoglobus with the cornea, whole cornea being thin, around 350 to 300, around 300 to 350 odd. The thickness of the cornea was throughout the year. And then we did a rhexis. To be careful, and incision was 2.2 mm, scleral incision. Then we did a very gentle hydro dissection. All the manipulations were really gentle and careful. When I started the phaco, it was a low bottle height. And look at, just keep on marking my left hand as I go, because that is where this side port has been enlarging because of the thin cornea. And then the phaco per se wasn't very difficult. It was normal. Only thing, that bottle is low. The pores was little minimal on the lower side. But left hand, if you can mark, the side port is going on increasing, enlarging. Right. And the only crux is here, very gentle manipulation to cornea. Even then also, if you see the left side port has already increased by at least 2.8 to 3 mm, and this which is sometimes even larger than the main one, but it still continued despite there being a prolapse. Despite the prolapse, the antichamber was very clear. And then I started with the bimanual axis. Then I realized it's better to do a visco expression, because that puts less amount of pressure on the anterior chamber and the cornea. So I prefer to take out all the epinucleus by visco expression. And now mark the right hand, and it is getting hidden on the markers, but still this hand is extends suddenly while manipulating. Yeah, this is, and this gets hidden here. We'll see it at the end of which I had to suture. Now, because the right hand movement was bad, then I started. Then I didn't put a bimanual. I took a Simcoe, which was a safer. Then to put a lens, which was of 2 diopter expand series lens, I used the side port because the side port was larger than the 3 mm, and so I didn't extend the main incision, but put the lens as it was already more than 3 mm. So put a lens, and it was really careful. Much I didn't want to extend this the side wounds further. It was already large. I didn't want to extend it further. The second thing, what I would like to say, the suturings in these kind of cases is a little dangerous, because the cornea is thin, much thinner than what we normally know, and its likely of cheese wearing is very high. So the suturing has to be really different and difficult and different. So at the end, again, no more high pressure, just with simple take out all the viscoelastic. Try to do low. You don't need to really hide it because you already sutured. Even I sutured the main suture because the cornea itself and sclera itself was thin also. Yeah. So what I caution has taken, I put in the IL power calculus very properly. To take in a scleral incision of 2.82. I have taken the low pressure, but the miss was the side port should have been scleral, and the left hand movement could have been little bit more watchful. Thank you.
That was a wonderful teaching video of yours, Dr. Sahu. I have a question here. Dr. Madhukar, want you to be involved because this is a cornea case. And just a minute. I just got momentarily disturbed. Yes. Now, there is a challenge in your IOL power calculations. This is one take-home point I wanted in this, that this is a keratoglobus eye with some amount of irregular astigmatism and a thinned out cornea. So I think it makes sense to go for the 4th generation formula in this, and also because your ELP is going to be hit because it's going to be a very deep eye. So I think we should err to keep your IOL a little myopic towards so that you do not end up with a refractive surprise. The other question I had was, you could have, when you made your scleral main port, you have made it a little scleral. Your side ports could have been made a little scleral too. Yes, it would cause ballooning of the conjunctiva, but you could have made a nick on the conjunctiva too. And then you would have not had to make a corneal entry at the side port and stuck to the sclera. It was one thought, of course. And I believe it, I think it's a great video which Dr. Sahu has shown, because, you know, it's like actually operating in a very high myopic eye. The instruments have to be placed very deep inside, and these corneal endotheliums are not very healthy. So there is going to be, you have to use a lot of viscoelastic in these cases. And of course, cheese wiring of the incision, he so beautifully showed. So Dr. Madhukar Reddy, what would you like to add over and above what Dr. Srikanth has said and what I have added to a challenge in a keratoglobus eye?
No, I would like to emphasize about the scleral incisions because the cornea is too thin in the periphery. And regarding IOL power calculations, I really don't know what is going to help. And because I don't think nothing will be, give it as a reference.
Yeah.
Any more thoughts from anybody else about IOL power calculation here? I have no idea.
Dr. Ramurthy, can you add something? I would just join in a minute. And Dr. Satyajit, could you introduce the next speaker?
I think great surgery, Dr. Sahu. I mean, great teaching video. It's not a condition that we come across normally. And as was mentioned, in keratoglobus, unlike in keratoconus, it's a uniformly thin cornea. And we do not face this problem in our more routine keratoconus or pellucid marginal degeneration, simply because there the peripheral cornea is reasonably thick and it's not really weak. And that's the reason we can do conventional surgery and get away with. And obviously in keratoconus globus, because even the peripheral cornea is thinned out. And I think you yourself mentioned it, that you should have made a scleral side port incisions also, apart from the main port incision. Even though you had a slightly irregular extension of the incision, I would not have ventured to inject the intraocular lens through that side port incision. I mean, that's one point I might have differed from you, because, you know, that is again stretch the incision, you have no control, and it might have led to a very irregular incision, but obviously you handled it very well. As regards the intraocular lens power calculation itself, like in any of these formula, I would have gone on to a Barrett 2K formula and then calculated the intraocular lens power. And usually what you get in these cases is a hyperopic surprise. So as was being mentioned, even making these eyes myopic by about a couple of diopters. If you get 18, inject a 20 diopter lens, that might be a good idea, because that compensates for the extra power that's needed. Because usually there's a misjudgment of the corneal power. What's judged is higher than what actually it is. And so you have to compensate for it. Even with the modern intraocular lens formula, I would use a Barrett toric calculator for this, Barrett 2K calculator for this.
I have one very important question for all of us to know. I want the cornea people, Dr. Nikhil, Dr. Madhukar, to tell me, and of course, Dr. Sahu himself, that what is the logic of why not consider cross-linking in a keratoglobus eyes? Of course, this is very thin cornea. What is the role of adaptive fluence in these cases? Any thoughts on this?
The cornea with the epithelium was less than 350 also. So that is how it is not indicated for any kind of cross-linking.
No, this adaptive fluence is something which is evolving where you
Yeah.
can treat in thinner corneas too. So I think it has not come very much into practice. It's more on a research basis now, is a question which I have to ask. The expert panel, anybody? Dr. Nikhil? It's not there. Dr. Ramurthy, would you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, yes, we know this nomogram that has come about now, where even for thinner corneas less than 350 microns, even going up to 270 microns, you can go ahead and do a cross-linking. Here, basically, what we have stuck on to is giving at least a 5.4 millijoules of energy in all cross-linking cases. Here, depending upon the thickness of the cornea that you're dealing with post-debridement of the epithelium, FAC has come about with an algorithm where you reduce the amount of energy that you are putting into these corneas. With this, he believes that even thinner corneas up to 270 microns can be cross-linked. And maybe that's something that could have been tried. But obviously, in a case like this, where I think the patient must have been in his 50s or 60s, maybe there's very little role for cross-linking. It's inherent, it's not going to progress any further. And I think the cornea is already thin and weak, and they have to deal with it.